I'm Dr. Mike Aldridge. I'm an associate professor here at UNC. I've been here for about 7 years, been teaching for about 20 years now, and I'm from the nursing school here on campus. And I've converted 2 courses fully to OER. The first one was an undergraduate course, Nursing 480, which our graduating seniors take. It's a leadership and management in healthcare course. And then the second course I converted was a graduate class that our master's students take in healthcare policy and finance. And the one that we'll be converting in the fall is a doctoral level class on evidence-based teaching methods. So 3 courses at 3 different levels in the curriculum. So during the pandemic, when we were all locked down, I remember I was sitting at my dining room table and it was OER week. And I was like, what is OER week? I didn't know anything about it. And they had a series of Zoom webinars about what OER was. And I just remember being fascinated by this idea that you could create materials, you could find materials that were already out there, you could put things together that worked really well for your courses, and they wouldn't cost students anything. So to me it was a win-win. Well, I think it was easy for the first course I did because it was a standalone course. So and I taught the course, so I had decision making over what resources we used. And at the time we were requiring students to purchase a book that cost about $100, and they were just using it for that course. It was the last semester that they were enrolled in our program. And I sort of heard through the grapevine from students that a lot of them weren't purchasing the book to start with, or they were purchasing old editions, and so some of the material wasn't relevant anymore. And I just thought, why are we doing this when there's a better way out there? So that's really what led me down the road to converting that course. I was trying to just find a better way that made sense pedagogically for the students, as well as cut costs, and then I could ensure that everybody actually had it when we started the class. Yeah, so I considered, what materials did I really need the students to have in the book that I was creating? Because for that course I remixed. So I took a chapter from a book here, a chapter from a book there. I used 3 or 4 different books that were already in the OER world and made one that was unique to our course here, so that it was just tied directly to what I was covering in the course and what the students needed. So there was no fluff in there for them. And so the process really was just, at first exploration, just trying to find what was out there, what I could use, what would work well, what needed to be updated or changed, and finding all those and then figuring out how to piece them together. And the library staff was really helpful with that, with the OER librarian, just in navigating the landscape as to what was out there and giving me ideas about how to put it together. Yeah, I think there's a couple things with that. So first of all, what it's really done is it's helped me look at what resources do the students have in other places and what do we really need to provide them in a book. And that's helped me streamline what I'm teaching and make sure that the resources we're using are most usable for the students, if that makes sense. So a lot of times, in a traditional textbook, there's materials that you use as a teacher, and then there's stuff that either you just say, hey, read this if you want to, which probably most people don't, or they don't use it at all. So you're really asking students to buy materials that are not fully used in a course. Whereas with an OER resource that you make just for your course, you can make sure that everything that's in there is usable. And I think that tells the students that you really want them to use the resources you're giving them, rather than just throwing it out there and saying, hey, I hope you read this, it might be useful. I think one of the most impactful parts of incorporating OER into my course, besides the pedagogical side of it, is really the cost and equity aspect of OER. When I look at, now that I've been doing OER for this course for several semesters, and some other faculty who teach other sections in our department have used it as well. I see that we've saved our students just at UNC tens of thousands of dollars in this one course. So I didn't really have an understanding until I started looking at OER data and talking to students just about how expensive textbooks have gotten. When I was a student, textbooks were expensive, but they weren't as expensive as they are now. And the market has completely changed with being able to resell books and get anything out of them when students are done with the course. So I see that a lot of students just don't buy the book. And that really puts some students in an advantage and a disadvantage in your course as to who has resources and who doesn't. So if as a faculty member I can provide a free resource to all students on day one of the course, we can start the course with everybody on a more level playing field for the resources that are required in the course. So to me, that's one of the greatest advantages. You know, I ask students at the end of the course about the resources and if they're using them and just what their thoughts are about them. Were they useful? Were they not? And generally I get positive feedback from the students. I mean, of course, everybody likes that they don't have to buy a textbook. That's kind of a given. But above and beyond that, they say that they like that, you know, they know exactly what's being used in the course. I can lay out the book in the order that the course is versus a commercial textbook where we might skip around from chapter to chapter. So it makes sense as to how the book is laid out. Anecdotally, they say they use it more than a traditional textbook, and so I think there's a lot of benefit to it. So I think that OER is different in addition to the difference in the cost and that you can customize it to your course. I think that it really has some benefit to the students in terms of just their learning in the course. That's what the overall larger data suggests anyway. And I think I've seen that in my courses as well, that students really are using the resources we're giving them, and that leads to better learning outcomes in the long run. My advice to other faculty would be to, first just start by looking at what's out there, and really partnering with the OER librarian on campus is so helpful, because it is a little intimidating when you start to search some of the OER databases, because there's a lot of them to start with. There's not one master list of OER resources, so they're sort of scattered about, and that's one of the hard things about OER. So getting the expertise of somebody who's already familiar with those databases can really help you identify what's out there, and then you can look at those resources and evaluate if they're useful for your particular classes or not. And I would really encourage faculty who teach what I would call the large introductory classes in a discipline to really be the first to start exploring OER, because there are a lot of faculty out there who've already done the work for you, and you'll find a lot of resources that are ready to use. So go for that low-hanging fruit first. Yeah, I would just encourage, again, talking to faculty, if you're considering OER, don't be intimidated by all of the language around it, and what is the difference in reusing versus remixing and those sorts of things. Again, look to the folks who are already experts in this, the OER committee, the OER librarian, and don't be hesitant to reach out to other faculty who've used OER and successfully incorporated it into their courses, because I think people who've done that are generally have had good experiences with it and are willing to share what they've learned.